Hi, this is Joe Castro, Salesforce Certified Technical Architect, and this is my 2-minute drill series to help you prepare for the review board. Today, we're going to be, the scenario we're looking at has to do with large data volumes. Just like before, you push, once you see the scenario on screen, push pause, set a timer, give yourself 2 minutes to read it, then record yourself, give yourself 2 minutes to state your response to this. This one's actually tough to do in 2 minutes. So if you get past 2 minutes and you get on to 3, it's acceptable, but again, just trying to get things crisp so you can get it down as low as possible. So good luck. Here's a scenario. All right, so you're back. Large data volumes. There's some good things in here. So when you're addressing large data volumes, there's several things that you need to keep in mind. First and foremost, you need to identify the objects that are affected by large data volumes, right? What is the data involved, right? In this case, there really was the contract header, 30 million records, and contract line items could be about 3 billion records. You need to do the math. You need to understand the scope of the problem in front of you. If you don't identify those, you're going to miss something, right? In this case, if you just looked at the headers and didn't look at the contract details, you may miss something significant. Right? So next thing is identify, the first question you should always ask is, what data needs to be in the system? Why do you need data in Salesforce? And in this instance, the header, you needed to process contracts, you probably need the header in, right? At least at a minimum, right? So I can set workflow rules, I can set triggers to send things off, fire tasks or whatever needs to happen. But do you need them? Do you need all of them, right? Do I need all 30 million, right? Is it, a contract that expired, 3 years ago, is it necessary? Archiving is another strategy we'll talk about in just a minute, but you need to address first what data needs to be on the platform. So my argument in this case would be at least, annually, if not, a couple months before, you need to migrate over the data that you need for at least headers. Now, with the amount of service contract details that there were, I would not actually recommend holding those on the platform, or at least not for very long, right? If it's viable that they have an OData connection, that might be something. I believe in this one, I should have scoped it so that it was multiple instances that they were migrating from, multiple backends, so that shouldn't have been a viable connection. I'm going to have 3 different OData connections. Yes, you can in the middle if you implement middleware, do some complexity to make it look like one. But in reality, you probably need to look at something where you're saying, okay, how can I get this data just in time? So as I'm working an individual contract, or maybe that month, I bring over the contract details that I need. Whatever your solution is, I'm not saying one is right or the other, but be able to justify it. Why are you not bringing the 3 billion records on? So once you've identified what needs to be on the platform, you need to talk about your data migration considerations, right? Data migration with large data volumes is particularly important because if you're going to load 30 million records, how much time do you need to get those? How are you going to test the data loads? How are you going to understand the impact of data skew and ownership if you haven't tried it once or twice? So once you do that, it's important to just call out what is your plan for migrating large data volumes onto the platform, right? So first thing, call out the data. Second thing, what data needs to be on the platform? Third thing, how are you going to migrate? How is large data volumes going to impact your data migration? Once you've talked about data migration, now all of a sudden you can talk about, I have large data on the platform, how am I going to handle it, right? Here's where usually they spend all their time. They just start talking about skinny tables and indexes and this, that, and the other. That's important. Understand what the scenario says. Understand how is this data going to be accessed and what is relevant to talk about, right? So there's where you need to talk about your search and reporting considerations, right? Here you bring up your data skew, how you're going to do search optimizations, a particular search, what you need to do for, are my SQL queries selective? That's great. Make sure it's relevant to, the problem in front of you. So once you've got data, and in this one it was supposed to be probably an integration for the contract line items, talk about that integration considerations, right? So how am I going to make sure that I understand how to get data volumes back in an individual day? How many calls am I going to make to bring in the data, from a large data perspective? And so just address any integration considerations you have. Keeping going. Archive. So archive strategy. So you can't keep all of this data on. Well, you can, all right? And I'm saying, do you need to? And so make sure you have that right archive strategy, whether you're sending these to a warehouse if it exists, whether you're using something in Shield, right, to offload data after the fact. Have a plan there. Make sure there's business reasons backing up when you need the platform. And in certain instances, and this one wasn't that complex, where there was they were archiving. It was a foundation, and so there had millions and millions and millions of donors. And so if they hadn't donated in a while, they were archiving them. So archiving everything, both the contact record, any donations they'd made before. But then if all of a sudden, I donated when I was a teenager, but I came back, as an adult, 20 years later, did I still need to, how did I rehydrate, I use that term, those records that were in cold storage? Do you need to? Do you need to not? And if so, have a plan. I'm not saying that you need to address that as part of your archive, but that might be a complexity that's thrown out for you. So just think about the architecture issues involved. Finally, the other thing that you need to make sure you bring about is LDV long-term considerations. So don't just do the math right now. Usually you'll see a scenario and they'll give you certain volumes and they'll give you certain projected growth. You don't have a calculator. Well, actually you have your computer available, right? Do the math. Figure out, is it, how much millions this year, 30% growth? Take that out 5 years, because something for all of the records, there may be something sneaky in there that is not LDV today, but might become a concern later. Anyway, take this one again multiple times. Do it until you're comfortable speaking about the issues. You can do it in 2 to 3 minutes. I hope you did great, and good luck studying for the exam. We'll see you at the next 2-minute drill.